Welcome, everybody, to our panel on how to maximize growth in 2024. We're really privileged to have three great leaders with us today. So we've got Gururaj Pandurangi, CEO at Thrivestack. We've got Arjun Saksena, CEO at Humanic. And of course, Adam Hart, who's the Senior Channel Manager for Africa and the Middle East at Zendesk. So thanks, guys. I'm really excited that we're all here today to hopefully navigate this big challenge about growth in 2024. So how this all came about, we were all having a bit of a conversation about, what is the right way for a SaaS company to grow this year? Obviously, last year was quite a challenging year for a lot of SaaS companies. And we were chatting about product-led, sales-led, a mixture of the two. And I think everybody here has different backgrounds and experiences that could maybe help those tuning in to just have a think about it. So just a question for you, Guru, just to start it off. When we look at product-led growth, why do you think that that's even appealing as a medium in a way to grow a company? And is it still effective in 2024?
Thank you, David, and thanks for the panel. Happy to be here. Maybe before we jump into the question, David, it might be a good idea to do a quick review of what's happening in the industry. So in general, we've seen that there are two trends that are primary mainstays. The first trend is, pretty much very apparent during the pandemic time. We had the B2B buying patterns that changed. Essentially, people don't want to talk to salespeople at the very, very outset, right? So they want to go and try things by themselves. Most of them want to go self-serve. Gartner, Trust Radius, and a whole bunch of other folks have started to talk more about it, saying that there's a self-serve or age of self-serve momentum that's starting. The second thing that happened is, before 2023 or so, most of the SaaS companies were incentivized to grow at all costs. Investors were incentivizing them. The market was favoring growth at all costs. You'd see that there's a multiple to the number of to the revenue percentage with the market cap that's being called out for. That changed as well. So investments in sales and marketing, generally did not result in efficient growth. It resulted in massive growth, but not efficient growth. In the last couple of years, we saw that the CAC, or the customer acquisition cost, have been rising very rapidly. And investors have slowly pivoting back to the 2018, 2019 timeframe, where the valuation of the companies are now subject to not just the growth of the revenue that comes in, but also the efficiency or the profitability. So I think in general, because of these two trends coming in, product-led growth has now been generally understood to solve some of these problems, albeit with a lot of caveats, right? So there's a lot of caveats on is PLG the right thing or not, and we'll probably hear from various other panels as well. But I think PLG is here to stay. It's how much PLG, is the question, that's coming to the fore.
One of the reasons I think that the CAC is high in even when you deploy PLG or in the last few years, is because overall there aren't any greenfield opportunities today for companies. So let me explain. Almost anything that you can do in go-to-market tech, sales and marketing, you can do in Salesforce in one way or the other. So if you're a big company, you've got every kind of feature in Salesforce and HubSpot. So if you look at it, 10 years ago, sales had nothing to do with product. Sales had Salesforce, product had Atlassian, whatever else, and they did a whole bunch of things. And over time, Salesforce obviously hasn't gotten bloated. That is the 800-pound gorilla, but everybody understands like you can do it, but it requires an admin, it requires licenses, it requires all of these things. But it's a unified solution. They can do everything, sales and marketing. They were built. And everybody else that's playing in this space is trying to get some people from Salesforce or HubSpot into their thing. So if you look at the PLG motion, there are two main hubs. One is the CRM and one is the CDP. You've got all your data, all kinds of data in a segment and particle, some CDP and a CRM. And now the whole problem is how do we connect what actions were taken in the CRM into the CDP and therefore make sure it works. And that's what's happening. And because the data silos naturally appear in larger and larger organizations, more dysfunction, more bugs, more issues. Everybody has a system in place, how they do, let's say, podcasting, or how they do calendaring, or how they do, outreach. And every other vendor that is in the space is trying to do it a little bit better than how you can do it in Salesforce, which 80% of the people are in the bucket, as we all know. They don't want to do anything. Like they don't want to optimize what already is, or it's not their priority to optimize what you are selling this quarter. They might do it 2 quarters from now. As we know, internally, there are all these org shifts and people are leaving and coming, and like they have their personal agenda. They're not trying to optimize everything unless it's so. PLG is not a silver bullet, which, with any new thing, people thought, okay, like if I do PLG and I'll grow like Slack or something and Dropbox, and I don't need to do anything else. So I think that myth has been, contained. And now it's brass tacks to say, yes, it's here to stay, but it's take a long time to get all my house in order and have more efficiency. But I think to answer your earlier question, how will people grow in 2024? All administrative tasks are going to be done by Gen AI and all of these different things. And everybody's trying to do that and will try and do that. And secondly, scaling is going to happen through automation. You won't hire people to scale. You will deploy all the vendors, like Gururaj, like myself, like everybody else that's building something. So people are acutely aware that they need to find the right tool to automate all of their different processes, their data movement, everything else, and utilize AI to scale, because nobody has budget. Like across the board, every conversation I've had in the last 3 weeks, everybody is ZBB, like zero-based budget. There's no more, resources or funding to hire people to scale.
I'm curious on a couple of those comments. Gururaj, you said something about how yes, PLG is here to stay, but it's like, there's some nuance to it, right, as to how to do it. And then, Adam, I know at Zendesk, you guys kind of have 2 motions running, right, in terms of your go-to-market. I'd just love to hear about how that works. Has anything changed this year?
Yeah, and I'm kind of smiling a little bit around PLG generally because look, we can cite some amazing 800-pound gorillas like Salesforce, as Arjun eloquently described. One thing is sort of a truism with a lot of these companies is they had an amazing product. So PLG as a motion it kind of stacks up really well when you've got the only show in town and people come to you as an industry thought leader, as an expert. I think it's a lot more difficult when you're in a crowded space. Take telecoms as a vertical. There's a lot of players there, and can they rely on PLG as a motion? Maybe, but they need to augment that. But I mean, if we think about Zendesk, so we grew from nothing 16, 17 years ago to what we're now 1.8 billion. We're set to do 2 billion this year. That a lot of that has come from PLG and being focused on the product, but it also comes from being sales led as well. So it's combining all of those things together. But it's fair to say that we focused on a beautifully simple product that is loved by agents. So we focused on the market as well. Where can we get success, and just stuck to that. We didn't try and go too broad. We just focused on people that are invested in customer service.
I know this is a bit of a sidetrack from the agenda, but now I have to ask this question just from what you shared, Adam. Both Arjun and Gururaj, you guys are both building tech companies. And just on Adam's last point about, kind of knowing exactly what the customer wants, like building a beautifully simple product that appeals to the market. I'm just really curious as to how have you both gone around getting that feedback in order to build, and just to Arjun's point, right, sales and product are not actually necessarily that separate anymore. So how have you done it at an early stage to kind of build it and sell it at the same time? What tips and tricks do you have?
Yeah, maybe I can go first. But before I try to answer that directly, here's maybe a thought I'm trying to build upon what Adam just said. Zendesk was successful in still a crowded market where customer success was or customer support. There were not so many tools which were focused on that. Salesforce had it, various other companies had it. How did Zendesk achieve, really 2 things? One is that awareness in the market that Zendesk can actually solve customer support problem. Number two, they changed the way that the products were built. They built, for the end users to come in, sign up, try things without initially much talking to them directly, as opposed to the traditional old support systems where selling used to happen at the CIO level or the support management level, and then the team will start using that product about 6 months, 8 months, 9 months later, right? And someone from the traditional customer success or support teams will go onboard them and so on and so forth. So the time it took for actual adoption and the wow factor was about maybe 8 to 9 months time. Zendesk changed that market, right? And to acknowledge that fact that anyone can go to Zendesk today and buy smaller licenses without even talking to the sales guys, right? That led the awareness campaign, that led to activation campaign, and very likely, and maybe Adam can speak about that, most of these users who came in through the product led motions over time, and that time duration could be maybe 12 months, 24 months, or maybe 36 months or so, almost 50 to 60% of them upgraded to higher level plans. And over time, the retention rates probably continue to increase. I think that's if that's true, Adam, right? And I see that you're nodding there.
Yeah. That it's definitely a blended approach, and you're right, Guru, because I'd say the majority of our, let's call them leads, that come in would be from trials and inquiries. Where we differ slightly is that we'll route things. So if somebody just wants to buy Zendesk with no engagement with sales, they can, right? You can go online, buy it now, any number of licenses. What we see is that really only happens in ESMB and SMB markets. I don't see that happening generally, and there's always exceptions, right? I don't see it happening in commercial, mid-market, and enterprise. They still need hand-holding, my opinion. It's not they're just not converting. So even though we've got an amazing product and a great PLG motion, they still need that sales process to guide them to get to the right outcome. I truly believe it's a blended approach.
Yeah. So maybe David, coming back to that, right? So let's maybe establish a couple of factors, right? The first one is the products need to be beautiful. They need to be simple. They need to be able to appeal to the end users from the very get-go. Product-led motions or building products ground up, which is targeted for the end users, becomes the mainstay, because users should automatically activate themselves. You don't need to have third party or even like a customer success or onboarding experts to help you onboard. If that's the case, then there's a lot of friction towards that, which means that the bottom rung of the market should be able to activate themselves and be able to use the product without talking to the sales team. The large deals, as Adam's mentioning about, could be either multi-year deals or package deals, saying that, hey, you bought this product, this product, this product, all coming together, and here's a la carte or offering with a multi-year option. Those deals only happen in enterprise deals, meaning that there has to have a sales touch to it. A human connection needs to be established, and you can't do that through product-led motion. So which means that product-led has some inherent benefits. The products become better, they become usable, and have an ability to essentially do three things: create better awareness of the product, because people can click, sign up, try, and they may not necessarily buy at that time, but at least they are trying to get there. The second part is, even if 15 to 20% of these users can convert to smaller plans, could be individual plans or team level plans, at least there is some value that you're giving to the bottom end of the segment, right? And then, which is the later part, which is the sales connections and and I think as Adam was mentioning about, you typically earlier days, sales would go directly do an outbound, give a call and say, hey, we are building something like this, and so on and so forth. That is the part that's changing quite a bit. most of the deals are now, most of the large sales deals are coming in from trials, people who have done the trials, people who have tried various things. And then you're calling those contacts. You're not necessarily calling, any Tom, Dick, and Harry, right? Sure enough, there are marketing campaigns and all of that to raise that awareness, but that awareness is going to the PLG. The bigger deal size are the people who are using the product, who have dropped off, or you see some patterns on a single company. There are multiple business teams. They have tried your product. Could we bring all of them together? So, uh, in general, layering PLG and SLG together, is probably the mainstay that needs to happen. The unfortunate part is, uh, how do we build new products? Probably very soon, gone will be the days when sales will just do pure outbound, to an unknown buyer or unknown user. Most of these outbound calls will happen to the users who have done the trials, or they have paid small, right? They are a customer, but they're paid small, and then focus is on upselling or cross selling and things like that. So, in a sense, that is the basis of building new tech tools in the market. Make them PLG enabled, make it extremely beautiful, usable to the end users. Try it out, with a small set of users and see. Instead of trying to sell to the CIOs or the even the managers or VP of some teams, right? Get the users, have the product in their hands and get the feedback. That's the first step that typical small companies, that at least we are doing that, and I'm sure Arjun and his team might be doing it. And we've worked with many other small companies. Most of them are starting to go that particular route. Build the product for the end users, build that wow factor in the very first go. And if they are not able to use your products, then you have a problem anyways, right? So even if the sales guys come in and try to sell them, they may not be able to have larger deals.
Just piggybacking on what Guru again described beautifully. Gone are the days where companies or startups were in stealth mode for 18 months and they would unveil, do a big unveil, like today we are doing this. That's no longer a thing. Remember, there was a search engine called Cool like 15 years ago. They were building, and they'd do like this big reveal. That's not the playbook anymore. Like the story is whatever shit you have, you put it out there and keep iterating. Like the Reid Hoffman, your first,
Yeah, you're bootstrapping really nowadays, aren't you? You just keep going.
Even if you have money, even if companies who've raised like $50 million in seed or something, which there are a few in the Bay Area, they all have products that are used by a few thousand people, etc. They have the money to build, but they want that visceral connection, and the founders are on every call. I think that's very, even though you might have investors that have spent like 10 $20 million, you've raised a big seed, you cannot avoid building, to Guru's point, a beautiful product and get people to use it and continue to find it, because product market fit is not something that is you find once and then you don't have to do it again. And to answer your question, David, on how personally it's been a very personal journey to find product market fit for Humanic. As a founder, you have to be completely vulnerable. You have to not lie to yourself to say, I have product market fit. And if you don't lie to yourself, you can develop a framework on how you're going to get there. But there are pressures, like if you raise a bunch of money or you are trying to project a company that is bigger than what you have, which a lot of people do. Like they start a journey and then they're under pressure to say, well, I'm growing. So they keep projecting out saying, yes, we have product market fit. Yes, we have customers. And you'll see that they go up and they completely fall down because they know they don't have product market fit. Everybody on LinkedIn knows you have no product market fit, but you are lying to yourself as a founder saying, I got it. If I keep doing this, grit will take me through, but the foundation isn't there. You know it, everybody else knows it, but nobody else is going to suffer. If the founder is delusional or tries to be untrue, this is Jordan Peterson's, why you should not lie to yourself, is because it will ultimately confuse you to say, am I doing the right thing? or am I not? And it's not on the investors, it's not in your customers, it's all on the founder. And every founder who is paranoid and who is truthful will find product market fit, because they now can say, okay, I'm at zero. I need to do this XYZ to get there. But anybody who jumps those steps and say, well, I've just, like, you look at the history of the Bay Area in the last 25 years, anybody that started out like this is a big bang like company, in a few years they're gone, because anybody that started slow, that kept on going and found, and PLG is the way that is now the playbook in the Bay Area or anywhere. Sorry, I am in California for a long time, so I just think like that. But that is the playbook anywhere. You build anything, release it out, no matter what you're funding, no matter what the investor is saying, because at the end of the day, you're the founder. Investors will just, disavow that they had anything to do with you if you're not growing at 8% year on year.
Yeah, maybe can I add a little bit to what Arjun is saying? So maybe, if you think in terms of the metrics, in the early days, how should a founder really think about it? Sure enough, the product needs to be built, and maybe Adam can course correct us, and see whether this was happening in Zendesk in the early days as well. So I'll take an example. We are building a product to enable other companies to start their PLG motions. Which means that we are trying to go and enable these SaaS companies to become product-led enabled themselves. Well, we have to be first product-led enabled. What could be the primary metrics for us to be successful in that? Well, we can't chase a revenue goal at this moment. If we start chasing a revenue goal, we may not succeed. So what might be the primary metric that we are probably going after? The first one is, even before the PMF metrics kick in, we are first focusing on, are people signing up to our product? What's our sign up rates looking like? And if we see that, hey, there are people are signing up, the next question is, are they self-activating? Can they discover the value within the product by themselves? Right? What's our activation rate looks like? How many people are dropping off soon after they sign up? Meaning simple things like, hey, are these users logging in the next day? Right? Are they using, are they setting up, whatever they've signed up for? Do they click on the right places to get to the setups? Can they activate it by themselves? And these are the two guiding metrics that we have at least in the early stage, days, even before the self-service revenue or sales-led revenue comes in, right? So there are some hacks around it. The hacks could be that, how do you enable people to sign up? Well, that's the time when you pick up the phone, talk to the potential users, to the companies, maybe friends and family, and say, hey, give us some feedback. Influencers happen to be a huge hand into trying your product and seeing, hey, this is not up to the mark.
Just quickly, 100% agree that revenue is like the top of the iceberg or tip of the iceberg. There is a lot that goes into PLG just to make the product. It's not like you can put a half-baked, half-hearted attempt at building a product and expect revenue. People want fully capable, fully functioning systems, not even, GDPR, this and that, and, DPAs and everything in place for them to start paying. So to Guru's point, even when you are funded and you build a PLG product that you have customers, you need to continue to refine to no friction and have everything else in place before people, before you can go into, revenue as a metric.
We're talking about kind of how this affects the sales structure, right? And how we think about selling software. How does this affect the marketing structure? In other words, right, the MQL, right? Do we ignore MQLs, or do we focus more on PQL, product qualified leads, as a kind of a metric of, let's say, marketing success? Like, what's our take now if we're saying, well, this is the new entry point for potential customers assessing whether they're going to buy or not?
Yeah, so I think the mistake that a lot of early stage companies do is, like, let's say somebody signs up for your product, you immediately get an alert on your Slack channel, you go and connect with them on LinkedIn saying, hey, thank you for that. that is that we were talking about in our event, Guru and I. That is a mistake, because if somebody is signed up, they don't want to connect to the founder. They don't want to be followed and immediately. So I think the way for companies to do that is to not get desperate, because that pisses people off. Just because I signed up, now I start getting all kinds of things. Like, I have people who send me notes on WhatsApp saying, you should try our product. I'm like, how I clicked on your website once and now you're on my WhatsApp.
You've got a good point there. So something that we do around that is we won't jump on it straight away, but you should be monitoring. So you should have cadence and you should have metrics. So if I've signed up and then nothing's happened for a week, that's when you need to be intervening.
Sure.
And that's either a sales-led motion, marketing, whatever product. But you need to have something in place. And equally, in our case, it would be, okay, you've started a trial, you've got 5 users. I can see they've set up some channels. I can see they've done some dummy tickets and set up their email, or whatever you're trying to measure. But it's about intent. And we talk a lot about that. So, going back to sales and something you brought up, Guru, earlier, when we look at the whole mix of our leads, and by the way, I'll touch on something else in a minute around leads, but we're also looking around intent. So, how many people have downloaded a white paper from that company? How many people have accessed the trial in the last year? When have they looked at the website? So we're bringing all of that data to bear on a situation, and then we can rank it, right? So out of 100, what's that buyer's intent? And it's not Big Brother, so we wouldn't know that it's Arjun or Guru, but we just know that company ABC has quite high intent because they've done a certain amount of activity. So I guess coming back to what I was talking about, for me, it's always a blended approach. Like, it's not one thing that is a magic bullet and you go, oh, we've nailed it today. We just sit back. No, never.
That's a really good point. And I think from my perspective, intent has two challenges with it. One is that whenever you define that algorithm for intent, companies tend to get more greedy, to say, even if it's like very little intent, I'm going to put them in because I need the revenue. So tuning the intent is in our hands as people to say, okay, I'm also going to have these people come in and send them emails or whatever. So I think that's one challenge. And that's where the PLS tools that have been taking a lot of space in the atmosphere are suffering because they tune the intent to be like capture everyone. Like, there is hardly anybody you leave behind with that intent thing. And the other thing with sales, as you know, is that people buy because of random reasons.
Yeah.
People buy B2B software just like they buy a pair of clothes or shoes.
It's Wednesday. Why not?
I just feel like it. I have budget. Like, it could be anything. It's got maybe 40% to do with data, but 60% is like this first brain, second brain that, thinking fast, thinking slow.
You're so right. I remember, and I'm showing my age, I go back a long time since like .net, and we'd lost the deal, and I phoned the customer. I was like, why? This was the right choice for you. Why have you not bought this? And the guy just said, because the other product had a big red button that I really liked.
It's happening a lot in the cybersecurity space as well, right? So because, one of my fellow, partner companies adopted a particular tool, right? Suddenly there's a wave. And none of the team members have actually tried it. But because there's a wave that, hey, this will potentially solve something like that. It's happening in the fintech space. So, maybe to circle back, there are 3 or 4 things that we just talked about. The first one is sales 4 or 5 years back was not using intent data at all. Sales was not touching anything with data. Mostly it was outbound conversations directly with the leads and take it from there. That has changed, right? So sales is now using some of the data, albeit a little more a little more crude because the intent signals, are still not very certain. The second part is the usage data needs to be somehow turned into there's an intent. Just because there's someone who's using the product does not necessarily mean they have an intention to buy. Right? So those tunings have to be done. And I think, as Arjun mentioned, he and I, we chaired a couple of these sessions earlier. We've done a report on the PLS, or the product-led sales tools in the market, and that's broken. The reason it's broken is, let's say there are 100 signups that have happened to your product. These tools will go ahead and look at all the 100 signups, put them into the bucket, and they will assign the first bucket, like say priority 1, priority 2 buckets, to the sales guys. And let's say the sales guys go ahead and look at the first 10 of them and talk to them. They need to do something. So they go after the second rung, and the third rung, and the fourth rung, and they exhaust that entire list, and they piss off more than 50% of the end.
Sorry, Guru, I'm getting excited here. But if you put yourself in the other shoe, like if I'm a buyer end user, if I really want Zendesk, I know you are monitoring me when I go to your site. I know I will receive email. I know how to get in touch with you because you have 16 places where I can click. If I'm truly interested, I know how to get you within half an hour.
Fair.
So
Correct.
if you put that hat on, now I signed up. I didn't do anything. Because I don't want to buy. I don't want a conversation. If I wanted a conversation, all I have to do is click on the calendar button. In half an hour, I'll have somebody talking to me about exactly.
That's a very efficient signal. For example, we've seen in the last maybe 3 months or so, I've talked to about 60, 65 plus early stage companies. Most of them don't have this, how do I say it? I'll call you, you don't call me button.
Yeah.
Right? In the product, right? Typically, early stage companies now started to put that, hey, schedule a demo call, or if you are stuck here, give me a call, or here's if you're stuck here, try this particular video. So these are hooks that they put in to enable self activation and all of that. And if they are not able to activate, that's when the end users want to talk to you.
You're trying to find signal where none exists. There is no intent. If I really had intent, I know where to find you on LinkedIn. I'll give you a message. Like any founder I want to really use their product. I go to LinkedIn, I send the founder an email saying, hey, I was trying out this product. Can we, within half an hour, I get an email back. He's on Slack. Everything is set up. And because I had intent. And the problem with PLS is that, and to David, to circle back to the conversation you had, like what should you do as a founder? You need to leave PLG and just let it be. Don't be a helicopter founder saying, I need to get everything out of it, because there is nothing there. Till you become a Zendesk, there isn't much there for you to harvest. And you need to do your sales led. You need to talk to your connections and influencers to find the right decision maker at a Zendesk or at a Stripe where there is a problem, and fix your problem. Build the product the traditional way while you continue to nurture PLG for all the reasons for which PLG exists. But you cannot do PLG and then monitor it and try and harvest when the product isn't ready. To Adam's, your point, it doesn't work end to end. To Guru's point, there are so many friction points. It doesn't really give me value, but you're already trying to harness everybody that is just like curious, because we are all in tech and people just like to know what's going on. That's pretty much it.
I'm sort of curious actually, because I've worked with a lot of SaaS companies over the years and I've seen a lot fail, a lot. And one of the things I've noticed with, and by the way, they sort of adopted this PLG motion. Probably didn't call it that back in the day. It was probably something different. But one thing that I did notice is there's an expectation sometimes that the product sold itself, right? Like, hey, everyone's going to buy this. We don't even need to do sales. Like, they'll sign up and we'll get their credit card and it'll be all fabulous. And to an extent, it worked, but not well enough. And then they ran out of money. But they generally didn't have big sales teams. And I'm kind of curious as to your view, because, and I'll preface this, at Zendesk, we're still sales heavy. I mean, we're 20% of the organization is sales. So I'd say that's, relatively heavy, but it works. So yeah, just curious on your view of that today.
I'm going to jump on that question and add a question that's very similar, which is, you all referred to product-led growth and the "don't call me, I'll call you" type of thing. But in the end, you were saying, someone's going to call you, right? Arjun, you said, I'm going to call the founder if I want this deal. And I'm curious, just to add to Adam's question about kind of the role of sales, is where does the gap start? Because there is a certain point where people do want to speak to sales. There's a few brands where people are willing to spend tens of thousands of dollars without ever talking to a salesperson. Apple, maybe Tesla, whatever else, right? But the vast majority of purchases are still being done, at least numerically, right? It's still being done with some sales involvement, and that's why, as Adam said, Zendesk, right, they've got a sales team, a large sales team. So I'm curious as well, just to tack onto that, is like, what is the prompt? Is it dollar size? Is it trust? Is it understanding? Is it like, what do you think it is that in the end makes people still want to connect with a human to make a bigger decision?
I think there are three stages. The first stage is when the company is young. There are at least one go do, and there are many, many don't do's. One go do is build your product in such a way that end users will like it. They feel that there's a need for a product like that solves a real problem. So that's a definite go do. There's many don't do's, meaning don't hire salesperson at that stage. The founder is pretty much the sales guy there, right? Let the founder talk to the users, find out if there's value in what they're building. I'll jump to the second stage. When the second stage is where the users are signing up, they're activating, but they're not paying, right? And at that time, typically some founders fail to extract payment from them, right? Because they have not trained themselves to, get to some procurement agreements or RFPs, or that's the time they can seek some help. And that help need not be again full time. It can be, partnering with, someone like, someone from David's team or someone from outside to essentially work with the customers and get them to sign on the dotted line, right? That can't be done through product led. It needs to be done either by the founder if they have the chops for it. If not, seek some help. Could be an advisor or somebody else. The third stage is when there's PLG motions are bringing you some signups. They are bringing you some activation, and then some self-serve revenue is coming to the play. It may not be enough to sustain the company. That's where you decide that, hey, now I start splitting these two motions into two separate motions. The first motion is let the PLG team and the growth teams, they focus on making the product still continue to look better, feel better, self-activated, so that the users find value. And there's another motion wherein find some leads from here, not all. Let's say 5% of the leads, maybe 10% of the leads, which can convert, and hand it to someone else outside of that particular team. Could be a salesperson or an advisor or someone who's on contract to go get those deals. That's the time when you decide whether, if that experiment of handing that particular lead, to an external person, not the PLG team, if that starts working well, that's where you have a definitive signal to do more of that, right? So maybe hire them full time, or double down on that sales led motion. But again, take only a small portion of leads coming in from PLG. Still do the rest of the things, meaning the sales guys can come with their own Rolodex of potential customers and call them up and say, hey, there's a new play here. You've been trying to solve a problem like this. Would a solution like this help or not? Let that be a separate person than the PLG team whose focus is, how can I get more signups? How can I get more activations by themselves? How can I make the end user experience better? What's the value that I can bring to the end users so that they can click and then be able to buy it for themselves? Or if not, at least give me a call, right? Those are the things that the PLG team should focus on. Sometimes people refer to them as growth teams. Sometimes they could be, separate PLG teams. But if you keep these two motions slightly, divorced, and there is a stream of these leads going from PLG to SLG, very unlikely leads will go from SLG to PLG. I've started to see that happen when the sales guys is talking to them, and the buyer is like, "Hey, do you have a self-serve sign up? Can you send that to me?" Right? And I've seen that happen now
Yeah,
more and
yeah, it
more.
does.
So there would be some cases like that, but most of the time the buyers are searching on Google or Bing or whatever the experiences could be on ChatGPT, and when they encounter this particular solution for that particular problem that they are having, it's very likely they will do a sign up. They may not necessarily convert. That's where the sales guys can come in. So my recommendation is try to keep these two separate and incentivize the sales team to go independently, not completely bank on PLG, because that's not where you'll make the money, at least in the beginning. You'll make the money. Your most deals will still come through SLG, even larger deals. Anything which is worth more than 20K or 30K a year will definitely come from SLG. They won't come from PLG in the beginning.
100% right. I think it goes back to what Adam said, 10 odd minutes ago, that you have to be a category leader in your space for PLG to work, for having the right PLS motion, to having what Guru just described. So to accelerate PLG and SLG motion and overall revenue, one thing as founders or early stage companies, you need to have a brand. Like take an example of Docker. Started as Kubernetes type of containerization thing, but they have a brand that people like. Like they're a good brand, even though a very techie company, they have a brand that everybody in tech would know. And because of the brand, if I have to choose between three other competitors, what also happens, Adam, you asked this earlier, is that when one company is successful, like 15 other people try and copy that same, they're in that market. So now automatically your PLG starts to, slow down, not because you're doing anything wrong, but people have 15 other options and people try other options because today is not the day where, you buy IBM, you're always right. People want the best, the latest product in the market. And in some sense, buying software will also become like a fashion thing. Like, do I need a Gucci or a Balenciaga? Like, my preference. Like, I want
Yeah.
Slack, or I want Discord. Like, it's just like how I feel about that brand. Like, it's
How emotionally invested you are as well, right?
Venmo or PayPal, they do similar things, but it's a lot of software buying is about brand and how you connect with the brand. So if I'm a non-tech founder and I've heard of Docker, I'm like, yes, I'll buy Docker because I've heard the name, I like the brand. My engineers might say, no, there's another way to do it. It's open source, it's free, it's this, that, and the other. I'm like, no, just stick with Docker. So there's all this buying psychology at the mega level that happens in, like, Zendesk was always a cool product. It was customer success is not the greatest, like the most sexiest thing in, but Zendesk was a cool product brand wise that was built for a very, cost center kind of play. And a lot of people are like, I want the best. I want people who work in customer success will be more motivated because they're using a cool product. Like, how many people say we are on Slack just to say that we are at the cutting edge? Or like another example is Superhuman. If you send an email to somebody with a Hotmail email address, they're like, dude, which generation? Like, who are you? But if you sent an email with sent from Superhuman or something, it will cut through the clutter and say, oh, this person knows something that maybe I should try.
So interesting.
So it's a lot of this psychology that goes into buying even enterprise products, which cannot be interpreted with data. For me, like the connection between PLG, which we've agreed, like you just let it be, but do most of your revenue through SLG. And to accelerate this thing, you need to start building, investing in that brand, the intangible, so that anytime it comes up, and I've heard of these guys. Like I should check them out.
Can you imagine 4 or 5 years back, there are all these web conferencing companies. There's WebEx, there's, Windows Live, Microsoft Office 365 Live, Blue Jeans, a whole bunch of these companies. There was also Zoom. Zoom created virality effect, wherein they did not bound yourself to your network, to your company. You could invite people from the outside and start holding conferences, start holding webinars, which is much more broader. That automatically created, that was a PLG motion, a virality built in as part and parcel of the invitation model within it. Zendesk, I'm not sure whether it still has it, but in 2 years back or so when I was using it, it had a network effect, meaning you can invite people from within your company, but you could not share the link of the case, to
Still there.
publicly, right? Saying that,
Yeah.
hey, this is not just for the customer and the team. I'm saying, hey, this is a feature request that came in from this. I'll make it publicly available, and anyone can work and vote it and things like that. So anytime there's a product element that introduces virality of it, we've seen that that becomes a lot more stickier. Anytime there's a integration, like, hey, I have this product, you can automatically integrate with Slack, integrate with other operational tools, becomes stickier, right? And whose role is that? The role of that is in the product team, or making the product a lot more usable. Generally, the invitation model or the virality effect needs to come in the product side of it. So there are both of these plays coming in. If you were to go the PLG route, go do the PLG part of it, make it viral, make it, even though it might be an enterprise product, right? For example,
HubSpot.
let's say Tableau, HubSpot, right? But take an example of Tableau. It's an enterprise data. You can go ahead and say, I want to automatically share this on my marketing website publicly. It's possible. And because of that, people are sharing that same widget over and over to other places as well, and it's live data, right? And Tableau became a lot more popular because of that in the very early days as well. So there's an aspect of virality that can be built in HubSpot, right? And you rightly said, uh, you can't share all the contacts, or for example, if the contacts or the companies have said that, hey, these are the 7 features I need, HubSpot will register them as features, but that's only visible to the SaaS company who's accepting those features, and the company who you can privately share with. But beyond that, it's not visible to most. What if they could enable it, saying that, hey, these are the 100 features that came in from 1,000 of our customers. Please upvote it, and we will. And the product gets a short
Right.
list from that particular. That creates that virality effect. I'll pause here, but I think there's a way to balance between these.
I think there's been a lot of good ideas here. I have to wrap this because we've all got a hard stop in about 3 minutes. It's funny how time flies when you're having fun. I almost feel like we need a part 2 here and maybe do case studies on companies out there. But I think just there's a couple of really interesting ideas that were highlighted throughout this. One is the importance of a brilliant product, right? A beautiful product. There's the importance of building a brand as well, so that you can create this community. There's this thinking about, let's say, farming versus hunting when it comes to PLG, that you got to let this thing, grow. You can't just keep harvesting every little seed that's sprouting, because you're going to kill the crop, right? And then there is this baked in virality, right? And actually being able to think as a product person and a salesperson and a branding person at the same time. Having said all of that, there still seems to be a very strong need for salespeople, especially at a certain ticket price for SaaS this year. And it seems like there is a gap, right? There is a gap that humans do still play a significant role in, whether it's trust, whether it's, whatever that is. And it seems like that gap is handled not only by a sales team, but also by influencers and founders and people that grow the brand as well, because there are people that purely decide, as Arjun said, just based on how they feel, or as Adam said, because it has a red button. And this is the unpredictable factor that we just don't know. So I want to thank you all very much for the time today. It's been an absolute pleasure. And guys, look forward to, maybe we'll do a part 2, maybe halfway through the year, see how our predictions fit.
Thank you for hosting,
Thank
David.
you.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Thanks,
David.
Adam.